The boreal forest of northern Alberta is not merely a landscape. It is a profound, suffocating silence. In the winter of 1879, roughly 40 miles north of Fort Saskatchewan, the temperature dropped so low that trees would crack open with the sound of rifle fire. It is a place where the geography itself is hostile to human life, a vast expanse of snow and spruce where a man is measured solely by his ability to endure. This is the story of a man who did not endure. It is the story of Ka-Ki-Si-Kutchin, known to the English-speaking world as Swift Runner, and the winter that turned a respected father into the central figure of the most disturbing criminal investigation in Canadian frontier history. To understand the horror of what was found at the trappers' camp, you must first understand the man who built it. Swift Runner was not an outcast. He was not a drifter or a known criminal. In the records of the Hudson's Bay Company and the Northwest Mounted Police, he was documented as a man of immense physical stature and capability. Standing over 6 feet tall, he was a Cree hunter of significant reputation. The police themselves had employed him as a guide. He was trusted. He was a man who knew the woods better than anyone, a man who had successfully navigated the brutal Canadian winters for decades. He was a husband, a father of 5 children, and a provider for his extended family. This context is vital because it strips away the comfort of believing that monsters look like monsters. Swift Runner looked like a savior. In the autumn of 1878, Swift Runner did what he had done many times before. He packed his supplies and led his family away from the settlements and into the deep bush for the winter trapping season. The group consisted of 9 people in total: Swift Runner, his wife, their 5 children, his brother, and his mother. They were heading into isolation, a standard practice for Cree families seeking fur and game. They moved north along the Sturgeon River, disappearing into the tree line. For months, there was silence. This was normal. The winter is a time of quiet survival. But the winter of 1878 was not normal. It was a season of scarcity. The game trails were empty. The moose and deer had moved on or died off. The cold was unrelenting. In the settlements of St. Albert and Fort Saskatchewan, people waited for the spring thaw, expecting the trappers to return with furs to trade. When spring finally broke in 1879, Swift Runner returned. But he returned alone. He walked into the Catholic mission at St. Albert, and the first thing the priests noticed was his appearance. In a season where starvation was a genuine threat, where other trappers were coming in gaunt and hollow-eyed, Swift Runner looked remarkably healthy. He was well-fed. He carried himself with a strange, manic energy. When the priests asked about his family, his answer was tragic but plausible. He told them that the winter had been a nightmare. He claimed that one by one his family had succumbed to starvation. He said he was the only survivor, having barely scraped by on what little food he could find after they died. The priests, moved by his story, offered him comfort. But as the days passed, the atmosphere at the mission shifted. Swift Runner was not acting like a grieving father. He was suffering from terrifying nightmares. He would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, thrashing against invisible attackers. During the day, he was erratic. He would attempt to strangle others and then claim he had no memory of it. He spoke of a spirit. He whispered about the Wendigo. In the folklore of the Algonquian peoples, the Wendigo is not just a monster. It is a manifestation of greed, starvation, and ice. It is a malevolent spirit that possesses a human, inducing an insatiable hunger for human flesh. To the priests and the local police, these were superstitions, but the behavior of Swift Runner was becoming a tangible danger. Suspicion began to mount, not because of the spirits he claimed were tormenting, but because of the physical reality of his condition. Inspector Severe Gagnon of the Northwest Mounted Police found the story impossible to reconcile with the man standing before him. A man does not watch 8 family members starve to death while maintaining nearly 200 pounds of muscle mass. If there was no food for the children, there should have been no food for the father. Gagnon decided that an investigation was necessary. He assembled a team to travel back into the wilderness, to the site of Swift Runner's winter camp. to verify the story and bury the dead. Swift Runner was ordered to guide them. The journey to the camp was harrowing. As the police detachment moved deeper into the woods, Swift Runner's demeanor shifted from nervous to almost euphoric. He began to run ahead of the horses. He would stop and laugh at nothing. At night, while the officers slept with their hands on their revolvers, Swift Runner would stare into the dark timber. When they finally arrived at the campsite, the truth was not hidden. It was displayed with a shocking, utilitarian brutality. The camp was not a place of mourning. It was a slaughterhouse. The police did not find bodies in the way they expected. They found fragments. The camp was littered with bones, but these were not the bones of people who had died peacefully of starvation. These were bones that had been processed. They had been cracked open. The marrow had been extracted. There were cooking pots still greasy with human fat. Inspector Gagnon and his men began the gruesome task of piecing together the events of the winter. They found skulls perforated by axe blows and gunshot wounds. They found the remains of Swift Runner's wife, his brother, his mother, and all 5 of his children. The forensic evidence told a story that contradicted Swift Runner's initial claims of starvation. It appeared that the killing had been systematic. It hadn't happened all at once. It was a slow, chronological dismantling of a family. Under questioning at the scene, surrounded by the remains of his life, Swift Runner's defense crumbled, and a new, more terrifying narrative emerged. He did not deny the acts. Instead, he detailed them. He explained that a dark spirit had entered his mind. He claimed the Wendigo had forced him to do it. According to his confession and the reconstruction by the police, the trouble began when the eldest son died. It is unclear if he died of natural causes or was killed, but Swift Runner admitted to feeding the body to the rest of the family to keep them alive. But once that line was crossed, the dynamic of the camp collapsed. Swift Runner admitted to killing his wife and his remaining children. He described shooting his mother. He described the way he had cooked them. The details were devoid of emotion, delivered with a flat affect that disturbed the police more than the violence itself. He spoke of the bad spirit urging him on, telling him that he must eat to survive, that he must consume their strength. One of the most chilling details recorded by the police was the discovery of a family amulet, a small bag of personal items belonging to his wife that had been pierced by a needle. In the context of the time and culture, this was seen as a sign of bad medicine, a physical manifestation of the madness that had overtaken the camp. The police gathered the remains, hundreds of bone fragments, and placed them in a box to be transported back to Fort Saskatchewan as evidence. Swift Runner was placed in shackles. The return trip was somber. The man who had walked out of the woods looking healthy was now revealed to be a walking graveyard. The trial of Swift Runner was held in August 1979. It was the first legal hanging in the Northwest Territories. The courtroom was packed. The evidence was overwhelming. The box of bones was present. The testimony of the officers who found the camp painted a picture of absolute desolation. Swift Runner sat in the prisoner's dock, calm and detached. When asked why he had done it, he maintained his story of possession. He said the spirit had turned him into a wolf. He said the hunger was a fire that could not be put out. He did not plead for mercy. He seemed to understand that his life had effectively ended the moment the first snow fell that previous winter. The jury deliberated for a short time. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was death. On the morning of December 20, 1879, Swift Runner was led to the gallows at Fort Saskatchewan. It was a bitterly cold morning, much like the days he had spent in the camp. Reports from the Times state that he ate a hearty breakfast. As he stood on the platform, he was given the opportunity to speak. He acknowledged his guilt. He did not blame the police or the judge. He accepted the rope as the only cure for the sickness that lived inside him. When the trapdoor opened, the physical threat of Swift Runner was ended, but the psychological scar left on the region was permanent. This case forces us to confront an uncomfortable reality about human nature and survival. We like to believe that civilization is a solid state, that our morality is fixed. But the tragedy of the trapper's camp suggests that morality is a luxury of warmth and abundance. When you strip away society, when you introduce the absolute zero of a Canadian winter, and when hunger begins to eat away at the rational mind, the line between man and monster becomes terrifyingly thin. Swift Runner was not a demon. He was a man. He was a father who had once protected his children. And yet, under the specific crushing pressure of isolation and psychosis, he dismantled them bone by bone. The Wendigo may be a construct of folklore, a name given to a mental break that science calls Wendigo psychosis, but giving it a clinical name does not make it less terrifying. Whether it was a spirit of the ice or a fracture in the human mind, the result was the same. A family went into the woods seeking life, and they were consumed by the one person sworn to keep them safe. To this day, in the deep woods north of St. Albert, there is a sense of unease. The trees grow thick, and the snow falls silent. It is a reminder that the wilderness is not just a place of beauty, it is a place of indifference. And if you listen closely to the wind moving through the spruce, you can hear the warning that Swift Runner left behind. The darkness is not out there in the woods. It is waiting inside us, hungry and patient.